Hello, hello. Welcome back to Tea Time with Tonya, Tuesdays at 2. Today, my special guest is Tonya Juge. She's a physical therapist, and we're going to be highlighting better health practices for our backs as we work from home. So, welcome, Tonya. Where are you tuning in from?
Thank you, Tonya. I'm tuning in from New York City.
Excellent. Yes, it's the two Tanyas today. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Tonya Sturl, a personal stylist and self-care coach, focusing on helping women to just feel good in their bodies, their self-care routines, their wardrobe, so that they can continue to age gracefully and be seen as the vibrant women they truly are. So I really wanted to dig into this subject because so many of us are working from home, sitting at desks, and it's been a little challenging. So before we dive in, it is tea time with the Tanyas. And I did meet Tonya through a networking event, and we discovered that we both prefer tea, not coffee. So what is your preferred tea today, Tonya?
I'm drinking peppermint with turmeric and ginger for a little anti-inflammatory action in the body.
Oh, nice. I love turmeric ginger. I learned about that recently. There's a brand from Trader Joe's I really love. And I didn't realize it has the anti-inflammatory properties.
Yes, turmeric and ginger as well.
Wonderful. And I am drinking from the tip of Sharon Holland Gelfin. She's a nutritionist we had on recently. I'm doing an everyday detox. So
Good.
she had advised that hibiscus, nettle, and licorice are great detox for the liver, so that toxins, our hormones, all that can process out of our bodies. I found this tea that has all three in it. So this is hibiscus, nettle, and licorice. So cheers
Wonderful.
to tea time.
Cheers.
Tea time with the Tanyas. You got double the power today. So we're going to dive in. Better health practices for our backs as we work from home. Now, as Tonya is a New York State licensed physical therapist, and Tonya does have a master's degree in physical therapy and is a member of the American Physical Therapy Association. She's also founder of Tonic Physical Therapy. I love that name, Tonic. Tonic Physical Therapy. It's a concierge-based physical therapy practice right here in New York City. Tonya specializes in manual therapy and nuanced one-on-one care for patients who are seeking a functional approach to rehabilitation, health, and wellness. And how long have you had your practice?
I've had my practice for 7 years now, and I've been a therapist for 19 years.
Wow, so a therapist 19 years and your own practice for 7.
Yes.
Excellent. And the good news is now I understand that you are helping clients virtually as well, not just hands-on one-on-one.
Correct. And it's actually worked better than I thought it would. You know, in many cases, I'm able to assess the patient quite nicely through telehealth and treat them. Of course, I can't do the manual therapy as much, but I'm teaching them how to do the manual therapy on themselves. So it really is working out better. It doesn't take the place, of course, of one-on-one in person, but it really is working quite well to the surprise of all of us. So
Excellent. And what are clients coming to you most recently about? Like, what are clients coming to you for?
I get a lot of low back issues, patients with low back issues, and the same has held true during the COVID season, especially with people now sitting at their home offices or creating home offices on their sofas, not having the proper seating. So it's been really great to work with people, and through just even a few hints, it can sometimes change their entire experience on a day-to-day basis.
So with the time we have today, let's kind of focus on that because so many of us are working from home, sitting for too long. I know every time I go to do yoga or Pilates, it's like I feel like I'm undoing that sitting at my desk for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. I try to take breaks, but I still feel it. So what are the effects of sitting, of like prolonged sitting on one's back? What are the prolonged effects?
Well, the way we hold our bodies all day long affects it more than an hour or two of exercise. I mean, I'm a PT and I love exercise. So, you know, I'm very pro exercise, but if you're holding your body 50 hours, 40 hours a week in a certain sitting posture, that comes out to like 200 hours in a month. You know, I think it rounds up to 9,600 hours in a year. So that's 9,600 hours that you're training your body to function or compensate the way that you're sitting and holding yourself during the day. And that far outweighs an hour exercise session. So if I have to pick, I have to pick realigning the posture, and you can actually train your core muscles through the way that you sit. You can balance your core muscles and turn them on properly, or do the opposite. So it's your choice which route you'd like to go.
So you're saying by sitting improperly, we're actually like encouraging our bodies to continue that out of alignment path, whereas we learned how to sit correctly, the proper chair, the proper posture. It sounds like we're actually kind of like, is it like training our muscles or training our posture in a way that's going to support us better?
Absolutely. You're training your muscles. You're taking stress off your ligaments. I can show you with a little demo here.
Yes, we love.
Oh, I just happen to have a skeleton, a partial skeleton here. This is the length of the skeleton. So it's been my experience with patients that maybe, I don't know, 80% of them sit on their sacrum, you know, so they sit sort of on the back of their bottom, and that sets up their posture to sort of do this. And sometimes they may not feel it in their low back. They may even just feel it in their neck and their shoulders. So you can see how the positioning here affects the positioning up here. Ideally, we want a small curve, it's called a lordotic curve here, a small lordotic curve here, and a bit of a rounding curve there. So ideally, instead of sitting here, we actually want to sit on our pelvic floor, it's the triangle between your sit bones, which some people know sit bones, they're your ischial-tuberosities and your pubic bone. So there's a triangle there that you can sit on, and when you do that, you will achieve a slight curve this way. You'll get a slight curve this way and a slight curve this way, which is actually a shock absorbing system that's been built into your body. So those curves help balance the body, shock absorb the body. Now, if you've been sitting like this for a really long time, yes, I'm exaggerating a bit, but these ligaments get overstretched, and 200 hours, you know, in a month, overstretching these ligaments, turning off these muscles, overstretching the muscles, and then maybe tightening here. So you're training a compensatory pattern. But the good news is, just by changing the way you sit, you can turn on these wonderful muscles. They're called multifidi, the deep muscles in the spine. You can take the strain off the ligament back here, and you will get a better, what's called a firing pattern through the front and the back. And you can balance your core just from sitting posture. You can also even change the range of motion in your pelvis and in your hamstrings by the way that you sit every day, or again, do the opposite. So it's your choice.
Wow. So it's so funny. Just as you were describing that, I could feel the difference just sitting in my chair just now, just finding those sit bones, finding that triangle of the pelvic floor. I think I tend to either lean too far forward or lean too far back. And also sometimes I like cross a leg. I either sit cross-legged or cross a leg and lean. Is that bad?
Well, sometimes I find when people cross legs, they're actually doing some sort of a natural mobilization to sort of put their body back in a way. Not always, you know, generally you really want to sit squared off, and you want to sit on your pelvic floor. You want to have your hips actually higher than your knees, which is very different than what a lot of ergonomic recommendations will give you. And the height of that seat will depend largely on how tight your hamstrings are and how much range of motion is in your pelvis. So you can actually, this is actually quite powerful. So just be aware that when you're changing your body from sitting this way to sitting this way, that you're changing and shifting joints all the way up the chain. So it's something that you want to do very cautiously and a little bit at a time. And do not be surprised if you suddenly feel muscles working really hard that have not been working, especially in this area. But know the difference between fatigue and strain, and do it a little bit at a time. So the goal is to just maybe do it 30 seconds 5 times throughout the day, and to slowly work your way into that sitting posture, because it does have the power to shift every joint in the spine up to the neck. And often it makes you feel really good, and then sometimes you might get a little stiff and a little achy from it, and it'll give you information about the rest of your body and where your restrictions are.
That's a good point, because we're talking about the back and the lower back, but yes, it affects all the way up to the neck, because I tend to get my stress up here. But what you're saying is, just because if someone has stress or strain here, it could be starting from somewhere else. It's a whole chain.
Absolutely.
Of events. Yeah. And so it's not just, so in addition to proper posture, sitting properly, it's also the chair we sit in. When I started working in my home office, I must have gone through like 3 different chairs in my apartment, and I had a dining room chair that had a little slant. And so it's like, I felt like I was leaning back but going forward. So the chair plays an important part of the choice of the chair. Should we be aware of that to kind of prevent?
Absolutely. And I definitely recommend experimenting first before you go out and buy a chair. Experiment first with different heights and different densities or firmness of surface, and see what works for you over time before you go out and purchase a chair. Just because it's expensive doesn't necessarily mean it's good. So generally, a very firm, broad, flat seating surface or seat pan is a very good thing. Okay, and generally you want to seat that, or bring that, the height of that seat up to a place where it's the easiest for you to roll onto your pelvic floor.
Okay, got it.
Now, very often when you're rolling onto that pelvic floor, you're going to feel like you're so far forward. If you have been sitting way back here, I take pictures of my clients and I show with their phones, and I show them, and they can't believe that they're upright, because when we move them forward onto the pelvic floor, they really feel like they're sitting too far forward, and they're always surprised and shocked when they see the picture and they see that their shoulders are actually directly over their pelvic floor.
Wow. So I love your process of how you can actually work virtually, so that you kind of, it's similar to like when I work with a client on her style or her image, there's kind of this before and after, right? The right color or neckline or accessories. So you have this before and after. You actually take a picture to show them what their posture is and then how to correct that. And it sounds like it's so interesting to me, because I always think I need to work my muscles during a workout or squats or Pilates or yoga, like an actual workout. But you're saying there's muscles that we can kind of like work just by sitting?
Yes, they're your tonic muscles, the name of my company. And they're the postural muscles that are meant to hold us all day. They're not like squatting muscles that burn out when after you do an isometric wall squat for 60 seconds, because they're meant to hold us all day. We don't necessarily feel them. The only thing that we feel when they're turned on is this very grounded, rooted sort of feeling. And that's how you know that your postural muscles are balanced and or one of the ways you know that they're balanced and turned on.
So these are the postural muscles that are called the tonic muscles.
Yeah, they're deep, deep muscles that, like, often when you see back charts, you only see the superficial muscles like the lats and stuff at the gym, but there are 3 layers of back muscles. And these are tiny little muscles that will weave from here to here and here to here. And there's some that line the SI joint here. And they're sort of like the nuts and bolts of a building that secure the foundation and the structure together. And it's important to strengthen those, because if you get the superficial muscles super strong, in essence, it makes those muscles weaker. So it's so important to train your posture to keep these muscles strong so that you can balance the strength of those muscles with the strength of, your lats or the other muscles that everyone tends to focus on and build up.
I just love knowing that as I'm sitting and sitting the correct way, then I'm actually getting a workout, like working on those good muscles. Like we think, oh, I'm sitting, it's passive, I'm not doing anything. I never thought that sitting correctly is actually actively strengthening these little muscles we forgot we had.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love exercise and I love working the big muscles too, but these are the muscles, the tonic muscles are often the ones that are neglected and that people don't know about. They've even done studies with back patients, and the patients who went through 2 different types of therapy initially seemed to progress the same way. But a year later, 6 months or a year later, the people who trained the tonic muscles had fewer episodes of low back pain than the people who seem to be on the same, progression, who had not focused on those deep muscles.
Wow. So again, it's preventative, which is why, I invited you, the experts I invite here. I do believe that, right, as we age, as we get over 40, 50, 60s, it is about this preventative, like these preventative measures we can do now to stay healthy, support ourselves. So I love your approach that it's like this holistic preventative aspect. Should we do a little demo with me right now, since we have camera? Because I'm in my home office and I think my chair is decent. Okay. So I'm just gonna see, we'll kind of emulate. I know your process, you have a whole pre-questionnaire before you meet with someone, to get to their specific issues, but we're focusing on the back health here. So how should I do this so that you can see?
Okay, that's great.
I have a chair, it can tilt back, or it can kind of tilt forward.
Yeah, so we're going to go with the tilting forward, because the first thing to train is your unsupported posture, and the supported posture is just another version of the unsupported posture is a portion of the supported posture. Okay, so can you separate your knees just a tiny bit? And what I like about the way you're sitting is that your chair, your hips are higher than your knees. That makes it much easier for you to roll forward on your pelvic floor. So the key is you want to be able to get forward of those sit bones, and not by popping your chest up, but by rolling like your belly. Think of your belly falling forward between your knees. Yes, and sort of hinge forward from your bottom. Okay, a little bit more. And you'll feel really planted when you get.
Should I be further? It's funny, this chair, when I go further back in my chair, it wants to relax back. And I feel like every time I'm in like a giant like boardroom meeting, there are these big bucket chairs that like you sit back. But yeah, it's really what you're saying is a little bit more balanced forward and the hips a little higher than the knees. That's
absolutely. And then you want to play with your pelvic range of motion, see how much range of motion you have, and then try to land on your pelvic floor, which is slightly forward of those sit bones that we all know and love. And you're almost going to feel like you're sitting on the fronts of your thighs, actually.
Yeah, I feel the difference.
Absolutely.
I feel the difference, and actually my neck feels better.
Yeah, so it will align the entire spine. This is a very rough version. Typically I need to assess someone and find out what's going on with them, but this is a good way to get you started. And remember to be very careful with it. Only do it for small periods of time during the day, and give it a few days, if not a week, because it's possible that you will instantly just feel better, but it's also possible that you may bring out some other restrictions up the chain that will say hello to you in the process. So a little at a time, and find the height of the chair where it's the easiest for you to roll forward onto the pelvic floor.
Yeah, love that. So it's interesting. For me, I've noticed as a personal stylist, I've had to notice my clients' postures, because when I fit them or the way the clothing lays on them, if they have like a shoulder that's higher than the other, or it affects how their clothing like drapes on them. So I guess my next question is, because most of my clients are over 40, I guess it's a two-parter. What now can we do, like, you know, after 40, to just be mindful of this? But let's say it's a woman in her like 50s, 60s, or 70s. What is your process in kind of like undoing what's been done, you know, over the years, the decades?
Yeah, and it definitely gets trickier as the client gets older, but I've seen 80, 90-year-old patients change their posture, which amazes me even. You know, it's actually very cool. So every person is individual and they have their own issues. So that's when, you know, the specificity of an individual session actually becomes more important. But in general, it's a slow process of sort of changing the way they function in their body, strengthening the deficits, the things that have been overstretched and weak, and then lengthening the parts of their body that have been like maybe overly contracted or overly tight. And those are the compensatory patterns. And you take those compensatory patterns off one layer at a time, like an onion. And what I find often is people will, as we're taking off these layers of compensation, they'll say, oh, wow, yeah, you know, 20 years ago, I actually had this problem, you know, and it's, you know, it's like we're backing up the timeline of their body, and they will not have even told me that this had happened 20 years ago. And so it's always fun and fascinating for both of us to sort of uncover these, the timeline of our body. So.
Yeah, excellent. And so we are, you know, we're focusing on the back, neck, back today, but are there effects on, like, if there's neck pain or back pain, does that affect other parts of the body, like your feet, your knees, headaches, like your hands? Like, how does your back health, like, how does the whole picture?
Oh, wow. I could spend 30 hours answering that question, but the short answer is yes, 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 you know. Generally, the core, it's so important for the core to work well and to be aligned, because it promotes, it sort of is the rudder, and it sort of guides the rest of the body when you walk down the street. So if there's something missing in the core, not firing, it will change the way your leg lifts up and folds and then touches the ground. So when someone comes to me with a knee problem, very often we go up to the hip and to the core and find a deficit, something that needs to be strengthened up here. And it changes the way, the position their knee is in when it hits the ground. So, you know, it's an exploratory process that's different for each individual. And it needs to definitely be assessed and sort of teased out. But absolutely, when your core functions better, your limbs will function better as well.
Excellent. So that's really why I really appreciate, like, your approach as this big picture, right? It's the importance of focusing on that posture and back health, these tonic muscles that I didn't know about before we spoke, these tonic muscles that I can actually, like, you know, practice on sitting properly and actually be working these muscle groups that's going to improve my overall posture and, you know, maybe work out those little kinks and everything that are in other parts of the body. I just really appreciate your big picture, you know, head to toe approach.
Absolutely. It makes it more fun that way too, you know.
Yes, absolutely. I guess just to sum up, what are just like 3 tips that people can do working from home, sitting for long periods of time? Again, I understand your work is very individual and specific. People should do an assessment with you for their individual, like, you know, pain points or kinks or problems, but just some overall, just what are three, you know, three top tips so that when we do sit at home in our offices, like what are three tips to just improve that posture so we can relieve that lower back pain?
Okay, so we've already gone over one. Just generally having the seat higher than the knees is a good thing. Occasionally, 1 out of every like 10 people, they actually need the seat lower. So I'm just going to mention that. So go with comfort. You're not necessarily what feels normal, but go with ease, comfort, and range of motion. What gives you more range of motion, more ease, more comfort. So use that to decide the height of the chair. In general, I have to say, you know, for supported sitting, you see all these lumbar supports that push the spine here in the lumbar area. And that really doesn't do any good if the pelvis is rolled back. You're just like increasing the compensation pattern by pushing this forward when this is going back. So very often, like if you're having a hard time coming forward onto your pelvic floor, you know, if you put the support here, which is going to feel more like your bottom, at the top of your bottom on the sacrum, that will help you maintain the position, and it will assist these muscles that are actually not so used to working. So that's one. And I would say, oh, there's so many to pick from.
Well, I was going to say, I guess that, you know, the best way is I really appreciate your process. We're going to share your contact info so the women listening on the call and the women in my style and self-care group can, you know, start with your process, the assessment. And I love your idea of that before picture. This way, like, how do we know what we're doing wrong, right? How do we know how we're sitting wrong? We need someone like you with that extra pair of expert eyes to identify and be able to, right, guide your clients into like that proper sitting. And I can't say enough how excited I am knowing that sitting the right way, I'm like practicing strengthening these muscles.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. I mean, I'm a PT anatomy geek, and so I get very excited over this stuff. But it really is, it's exciting for the clients as well when they discover this. And very often, whatever we have been doing just is what feels normal to us. So even if, you know, I treated people who are, I don't know, like this, and they feel like that's normal. And when they're here, they feel like they're tipping over, you know? So it's what feels normal is different than what feels rooted and grounded. And it's sort of almost an athletic position. Like if you were going to play a sport or you were going to catch a heavy ball, you know, where would you be? You wouldn't be like this. You would be really sort of planted and grounded in the ground. So it's really, yeah, it's so powerful. It really is. And that's why I do it. The work is so powerful, and it really can change lives if you're 20 or if you're 90.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I feel the difference, and I appreciate what you said about like getting used to that new normal way of sitting that is going to be the correct way that'll support you years and years from now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And work, it seems very docile, you know, but again, it's not always docile. It's actually can be very aggressive at times. So be careful and make sure you maybe just sit there for 20 to 30 seconds at a time, and then take a break, go back to your old posture, and then do it again. And what you may find is that your body starts craving this new position, because our bodies have this innate ability to know what's right for them. And if you listen to your body, it will tell you what is right for you. Don't listen to your head, listen to your body.
Yeah, so it's slowly retraining. Mm-hmm. So that you don't shock the body, but kind of slowly easing it into that new, more proper posture. Yeah, I can feel the difference. I'm gonna practice that more. So Tonya, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Tonya Juge with her Tonic. What's the name of your company? You're founder of Tonic.
Tonic Physical Therapy.
Tonic Physical Therapy. And do you have any special service or offer or programs coming up?
I do, actually. I have, over the last 4 months, I've developed this low back pain class with a naturopathic doctor and an acupuncturist, and it starts tomorrow. And I'm really excited about the information. We're going to talk about inflammation. We're going to talk about the mechanical aspects of pain, which is what we did partially today. We're going to talk about energy flow and Chinese medicine perspective. And I'm so excited because there are often many solutions to people's back pains, not just one. The Penelope McDonald and Mona Chopra are the other practitioners that I am doing this in concert with. And it's 3 courses over the course of the next few weeks. It's recorded. So if you sign up, you can actually see it or watch it at your own convenience. If you go to tonicpt.com, that's my website, on the upper right-hand corner of the screen, there's an option to register for the low back pain 3 perspectives class. So I'm so excited about this, and we're launching it tomorrow.
Perfect. So I'm going to share that here in the Facebook group so people can just click on the link. So it's pttonic.com.
Tonicpt.com. TONICPT.
Yeah, I'll post it here. So it's tonicpt.com. You're going to look at the upper right and click on the lower back.
Yes, the lower back class.
And you're partnered up with an acupuncturist and a
naturopathic doctor.
Again, I love your approach, this holistic approach. Thank you so much for joining us for Tea Time with Tonya. Tea Time with Tonya today. Again, check out Tonya's work through her website. Do sign up for this course. We can all use this. We're all sitting at home, you know, and just start to learn to take care of ourselves and our health as we age, women over 40 in our 50s, 60s, so that we can continue to feel strong and vibrant in our bodies. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tonya.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All righty, everyone. Stay safe. Be well.